She dreaded taking a human mate until the moment she saw his true power. As a representative of her people, the Zytherans, she had long been trained to maintain control, to think before acting, and to never allow emotion to influence decisions. It was what had earned her the position of chief diplomat, a role that demanded intelligence, caution, and strength. But today, a different kind of challenge awaited her. She had been informed that her next assignment would involve working closely with a human, a species she had long considered unpredictable and, frankly, frustrating. Zytheran society prized logic and order above all else, while humans, she had observed, often relied on instincts, improvisation, and emotions. This mismatch had caused many failed alliances in the past. The news had unsettled her more than she cared to admit. Humans were not dangerous in the physical sense, at least not compared to some of the other species the Zytherans dealt with, but they were complicated. And complications were the last thing a diplomat needed when negotiating delicate interstellar agreements. Lyra paused at the doorway to the designated meeting chamber, smoothing the front of her uniform. She took a deep breath and reminded herself that this was her duty. Duty was the core of her existence. Personal feelings or doubts were irrelevant. "Enter," a voice called from inside. Lyra pushed the door open and stepped inside. The chamber was bright, its walls shimmering with a subtle iridescent light that adjusted to her mood sensors. In the center of the room stood a human man, tall, with dark hair and an expression that combined curiosity with confidence. He noticed her immediately. "You must be Lyra," he said, his voice calm but firm. "I'm Commander Ethan Rylan." Lyra regarded him carefully. She noted the squared jaw, the steady posture, and the confident gaze. Humans often tried to display confidence, she had observed, but it was usually exaggerated or hollow. Yet there was something in Ethan that seemed genuine. She resisted the flicker of surprise that rose within her. "Yes," she replied, her voice measured and even. "I am Lyra. You have been assigned to accompany me on the Zytheran human diplomatic mission." Ethan nodded. "That's right. And I look forward to working with you." His tone was polite, yet there was an ease to him that seemed natural, not forced. Lyra made a mental note. This was unusual for humans. Most she had met were either brash or overly cautious. "Very well," she said, crossing her arms slightly. "We depart in 12 hours. I suggest you familiarize yourself with Zytheran customs before then. Efficiency and precision are expected at all times." Ethan tilted his head slightly. "Of course, I'll do my best." Lyra studied him silently for a moment longer. Despite her reservations, she knew that arguing or showing doubt now would not help. She needed to maintain composure and focus on the mission ahead. As she left the chamber, she could not help but feel a small pang of unease. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but there was also something different about this one. She shook her head. Focus, duty, that was all that mattered. The next hours passed in a blur of preparation. Lyra checked her gear, reviewed diplomatic protocols, and analyzed the mission parameters. She noted Ethan's preparations from a distance. Unlike her meticulous, methodical approach, he seemed to move with a relaxed confidence. He did not appear nervous, nor did he show the signs of impatience many humans did when under pressure. When the time came to board the diplomatic cruiser, Lyra stood at the entrance, arms folded, watching as Ethan approached. "You ready?" he asked, his expression easy, almost playful. Lyra raised an eyebrow. "Ready is a relative term," she said, her voice crisp. "But yes, we leave at once." The human offered a small smile. "Good enough for me." The cruiser lifted off with smooth precision, cutting through the atmosphere of Zythera. Lyra observed the stars as they streaked past, her mind reviewing all possible scenarios for the upcoming negotiations. She barely noticed Ethan moving through the cabin, familiarizing himself with the vessel's controls and systems. Eventually, he approached her again, standing silently for a moment before speaking. "I know humans can be unpredictable," he said. "But I also know we're capable of surprises that might actually help." Lyra studied him, intrigued despite herself. He spoke without arrogance, yet with confidence that suggested experience and understanding. "We shall see," she said, her tone guarded. The first day aboard the cruiser passed without incident. Lyra spent her time reviewing the mission objectives and protocols, while Ethan engaged with the ship systems and crew, asking questions that revealed insight she had not expected. By the evening, Lyra began to realize that he was not the ordinary human she had assumed he would be. The next morning, the cruiser arrived at the orbit of the human colony on Zythera. Lyra prepared herself for the formal greeting, reviewing every detail to ensure that protocol was followed exactly. Ethan, however, seemed completely at ease. "Relax," he said quietly as they stepped onto the landing platform. "We'll be fine." Lyra's instincts bristled at his casual tone. Humans were rarely calm in situations that required precision. Yet, as they walked together toward the colony leadership, she noticed the way the humans and Zytherans watched them. There was a subtle respect in their expressions, not fear or doubt. During the initial formal introductions, Lyra observed Ethan closely. While she had expected clumsiness or missteps, he spoke clearly and respectfully, acknowledging Zytheran customs while remaining true to his own nature. She noted the ease with which he navigated the cultural nuances, a skill that would take many humans years to learn. After the introductions, they were given a tour of the colony. Lyra walked beside Ethan, noting his interactions with the humans and Zytherans alike. He asked questions, offered suggestions, and even gently corrected misunderstandings without condescension. Lyra felt a strange mix of irritation and admiration. This human, he was capable in ways she had never anticipated. As the day progressed, a small incident occurred. A minor technical malfunction in the colony's power grid caused a brief blackout. Panic began to ripple through the personnel, but Ethan immediately took control, directing teams to stabilize the situation while remaining calm and composed. Lyra watched, surprised, as his quick thinking prevented what could have escalated into a major problem. Later, in the quiet of her quarters, Lyra reflected on the day. She had approached this mission expecting difficulty and resistance. Instead, she had witnessed a human acting with intelligence, courage, and calm under pressure. While she would never admit it aloud, a part of her felt intrigued. Despite her curiosity, she reminded herself of her duties. She could not afford to let personal impressions interfere with her responsibilities. Yet the seed of doubt had been planted. Perhaps humans were more capable than she had given them credit for. As night fell, Lyra stood by the observation window, watching the stars stretch across the sky. Ethan had returned to his own quarters, leaving her in solitude. The galaxy beyond the cruiser was vast and mysterious, full of dangers and opportunities. Lyra knew that the days ahead would test her skills, patience, and judgment. And somewhere deep within, she realized that this human, whom she had dreaded partnering with, might teach her more than she expected. For the first time in her career, Lyra felt the faint stirrings of curiosity, not just about the mission, but about the human standing at her side. The cruiser glided silently through the vastness of space, leaving Zythera behind as it headed toward the distant star system where the peace talks would take place. Lyra spent the journey immersed in data reports and diplomatic protocols. Every detail mattered, every decision could affect not just the mission, but the fragile relationship between humans and Zytherans. Ethan, meanwhile, moved through the ship with an ease that frustrated and fascinated her. He spoke to the crew politely, yet casually, asking questions that revealed a sharp mind and a calm presence. He seemed to notice things others overlooked, the way a system flickered, the subtle warning lights, the slightest shift in the station's energy flow. Lyra observed him, her arms crossed, lips pressed tightly together. Humans were usually reckless in unfamiliar environments. Yet Ethan moved with precision, anticipating problems before they arose. She resisted the small thrill of admiration rising within her. He was still a human, unpredictable and emotional by nature, and she could not afford to let her guard down. The first challenge arrived sooner than expected. As the cruiser approached the orbit of the neutral system of Telaris, the ship's sensors detected unusual energy spikes. Lyra's eyes narrowed as she analyzed the readings. "Commander," she called to Ethan, "there are fluctuations in the gravitational field near the approach vector. It may indicate the presence of rogue ships or natural anomalies." Ethan approached, peering at the data on her console. "Rogue ships?" he asked. "Do we know their origin?" Lyra shook her head. "No, the readings are irregular. Their energy signatures are masked. It is highly unusual." Ethan studied the display, tapping his fingers lightly on the console. "We need to be prepared for anything. I suggest we adjust our shields and prepare evasive maneuvers just in case." Lyra raised an eyebrow. "You suggest?" She had expected rigid instructions, strict procedures. Humans were often impulsive, but Ethan's tone was calm, measured, and practical. Yes, he said simply. It is better to be prepared than to react too late. Lyra hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Agreed. Execute your plan. The crew moved quickly, adjusting the shields and securing sensitive systems. Lyra watched as Ethan coordinated the teams with quiet authority. He did not bark orders. He suggested solutions, observed their effectiveness, and adapted instantly when the situation changed. The tension was almost tangible when a fleet of unmarked ships appeared from behind an asteroid belt, their movements erratic but threatening. Lyra felt her pulse quicken, but she forced herself to remain composed. Humans often faltered in the presence of danger, yet Ethan's calmness seemed to anchor the crew, preventing panic. "Do not engage unless necessary," Lyra instructed, her voice steady. Ethan nodded. "Agreed. Let's see if they approach or retreat. Sometimes hesitation is more powerful than attack." The ships advanced cautiously, scanning the cruiser with advanced sensors. Ethan's quick adjustments to the shield frequencies and navigation controls made the cruiser appear less detectable. Lyra could not help but notice the subtle brilliance of his strategy. Hours passed in tense observation. The rogue ships eventually retreated, disappearing into the darkness of space as mysteriously as they had appeared. The crew exhaled collectively, relief mingling with lingering anxiety. Lyra turned to Ethan. "Your tactics, they were unconventional, but effective." Ethan shrugged modestly. "Sometimes the best approach is the one no one expects. Humans have a way of thinking outside rigid patterns." Lyra studied him, realizing that she had underestimated him. Not only had he kept the crew calm, but his creativity and adaptability had prevented a potentially dangerous confrontation. The next challenge came when the cruiser arrived at the orbital station of Veridian, a neutral hub for diplomatic meetings. The station was massive, its surface dotted with docking bays, research modules, and residential sectors. As they approached, alarms suddenly blared across the ship. Lyra's stomach tightened. "Report!" A junior officer responded quickly. "There is a structural collapse in Docking Bay 7. Several personnel may be trapped. The station's automated systems are offline." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "We cannot wait for backup. We must act now. Commander, your input." Ethan's gaze shifted to the docking bay display. "We can use the ship's emergency pods to reach the area and stabilize the structure. I'll coordinate with the station's engineering teams remotely. Timing will be critical." Lyra nodded, impressed despite herself. Humans often acted impulsively in crises. Yet Ethan's plan was calculated, precise, and adaptable. "Proceed," she said. Minutes later, they arrived at the docking bay. The scene was chaotic. Debris littered the floor, alarms blared, and smoke filled the air. Ethan moved quickly, giving calm instructions to the crew. He used a combination of human intuition and logic to stabilize collapsing structures while ensuring no one was harmed. Lyra watched him work. Each decision was deliberate, yet flexible. He adapted instantly when new dangers emerged. A shifting beam, a failing support cable, a panicked engineer. By the time the situation was under control, the trapped personnel were safe, and the damage had been minimized. Lyra found herself quietly acknowledging his abilities. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but they also possessed a remarkable capacity for courage and ingenuity. She had long dismissed these traits as minor compared to Scytheran discipline and logic. Now, she began to see them as strengths in their own right. After the crisis, Lyra and Ethan returned to the cruiser, the weight of the day settling around them. Lyra found herself unusually reflective. "You handled that well," she said, her voice quieter than usual. Ethan glanced at her. "We handled it together," he replied simply. Lyra frowned slightly. She was not used to human humility, yet there was honesty in his words, a recognition of shared effort rather than personal glory. It was unusual. That night, Lyra remained at the observation window, staring at the swirling stars outside. The events of the day replayed in her mind, the rogue ships, the collapsing docking bay, the skill and composure Ethan had displayed. She could not deny that he had exceeded all her expectations. Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock at the door. Ethan entered, holding 2 cups of hot tea. He handed one to her with a small smile. "I thought you might like this," he said. "It helps me think when I'm planning or analyzing situations. Might help you too." Lyra accepted the cup, noting the warmth and the subtle scent of spices she did not recognize. "Thank you," she said carefully. She was not used to such gestures. Humans often displayed emotions openly, something Zytherans rarely did, yet this was not cloying or unnecessary. It was practical, considerate, and oddly comforting. They sat in silence for a few moments, each lost in thought. Lyra observed Ethan's calm expression, the way his eyes seemed to absorb the vastness of space beyond the window. She realized that despite the chaos they had faced, he remained composed, adaptable, and focused, a true partner in every sense. "You surprised me today," she said finally. "I did not expect a human to handle crises with such control." Ethan smiled faintly. "Humans can be unpredictable, yes, but we also have a way of seeing opportunities where others see problems. It's not always logical, but it can be effective." Lyra nodded slowly. "Perhaps I have underestimated your species." Ethan tilted his head slightly. "Perhaps. And perhaps you will find that humans have more to offer than you realize." Lyra did not respond immediately. The words stirred something inside her, a mixture of curiosity, respect, and the faintest hint of admiration. She was trained to maintain objectivity, yet she could not ignore the growing recognition that humans, this human, might be capable of more than she had believed. As the cruiser continued toward the diplomatic station, Lyra found herself thinking about the days ahead. The mission would be difficult, full of negotiations, strategy, and the constant balancing of alliances. Yet with Ethan at her side, she felt a sense of cautious optimism. For the first time, Lyra realized that her dread of working with a human was not entirely justified. Perhaps humans were not merely chaotic and unpredictable. Perhaps they were capable of courage, insight, and resourcefulness that even Zytherans could admire. And perhaps in the trials ahead, she would come to rely on those qualities more than she had ever expected. The cruiser descended through the atmosphere of the uncharted planet with smooth precision, cutting through clouds tinged with violet and gold. Lyra's eyes followed the horizon, taking in the jagged mountains, dense forests, and shimmering rivers that stretched as far as the eye could see. The planet, designated Trellis 9, was uncharted for a reason. It was volatile, unpredictable, and poorly understood. "Lieutenant, ensure the sensors are active," Lyra commanded, her voice calm but firm. She had learned to trust the ship's systems, but she had also learned that technology alone could not account for nature's unpredictability. Ethan was already at the console, his hands moving confidently across the controls. "Sensors are online. The planet is stable for now, but I recommend we land near that river delta," he said, pointing to a wide expanse of water that reflected the alien sunlight. "It's flat, open, and easy to navigate once we're on the surface." Lyra studied the display. "Agreed. Prepare for landing. Keep the engines at minimal thrust. We must avoid disturbing the local ecosystem." As the cruiser touched down, the ground trembled slightly, but the landing was smooth. Lyra exhaled quietly, scanning the surroundings for any potential threats. Ethan stepped out first, his boots crunching against the alien soil, his posture relaxed yet alert. Lyra followed, taking in the environment with caution. The air was breathable but carried a subtle metallic tang. Strange plants swayed gently, responding to a breeze she could not feel. Small creatures darted among the undergrowth, curious but cautious. "Our mission is to survey this region for potential resources and assess any threats," Lyra explained to Ethan. "We are not here for conflict, observation only." Ethan nodded. "Understood, observation and safety first." They moved together, scanning the terrain and taking notes. Lyra could not help but notice how Ethan interacted with the environment. He did not move quickly, but he moved deliberately, noticing details she had overlooked. He crouched to examine plant structures, noting their resilience and possible uses. He observed small animals, recording their behaviors without disturbing them. "You see things differently," Lyra remarked, her tone neutral but curious. "Most humans would rush through or ignore these details." Ethan glanced at her. "We have to adapt to survive." Observation is survival. Not everything can be controlled by technology. Lyra considered this. Her species relied heavily on logic, calculation, and technological precision. Humans had their methods, often messy, but sometimes astonishingly effective. She found herself begrudgingly impressed. The day passed uneventfully, and they set up a temporary camp near the river delta. As the sun dipped below the jagged mountains, casting long shadows across the terrain, Lyra reviewed the survey data. Ethan was at the river collecting samples and sketching notes in a waterproof tablet. Commander, Lyra said, walking over, why are you so thorough? There is no immediate danger. Ethan smiled faintly. Danger isn't always immediate. Planning ahead is what keeps people alive in unexpected situations. Lyra frowned slightly. Humans valued instinct, but she realized that instinct could also be combined with observation and foresight. Ethan's method was a blend of careful study and intuition, a combination rare in any species she had met. As night fell, the temperature dropped sharply. Alien insects began to hum softly in the darkness, and distant roars echoed from the mountains. Lyra felt a familiar tension in her chest. Even a trained diplomat could feel fear when confronted with the unknown. Ethan noticed her unease. "It's all right," he said softly, standing beside her. "These creatures are curious, not aggressive. Most of the sounds you hear are warnings, not attacks." Lyra's posture relaxed slightly. "You seem to understand this place better than I do, human." "I try to respect what I don't understand," Ethan replied. "Sometimes that is more important than trying to control it." Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden tremor that shook the ground beneath them. Rocks fell from the nearby cliffs, and a low rumble filled the air. Lyra's eyes widened. "Seismic activity," she exclaimed. "We must move to higher ground immediately." Ethan acted instantly. "Follow me, stay close." They ran toward a nearby plateau, leaping over twisted roots and fallen branches. Lyra's heart pounded, but she marveled at Ethan's composure. He did not panic. He calculated the safest path while maintaining speed. They reached the plateau just as the ground below them split with a deafening roar, creating a deep fissure in the terrain. Lyra crouched, catching her breath, and watched the destruction below. "Your timing, you saved us," she said, her voice quieter than usual. Ethan shrugged, though his eyes were serious. "It's not luck. Observation, timing, and calmness under pressure, that's how humans survive unexpected dangers." Lyra felt a strange mixture of respect and surprise. This human was more capable than she had imagined. He was brave, quick-thinking, and adaptable, traits she had always believed were rare among humans. The following days tested them further. The planet's weather shifted suddenly, storms of acid rain sweeping across the landscape. They faced unstable terrain, wild animals, and unpredictable energy surges from the planet's magnetic fields. Each time, Ethan remained calm, finding solutions where logic alone might have failed. Lyra began to understand that his strength was not just physical or intellectual. It was a combination of adaptability, empathy, and creativity. He could anticipate problems and act decisively, but he also considered the well-being of others, including the planet's creatures. One evening, as the storms subsided and the stars shone brightly above, Ethan shared a small campfire with Lyra. The air was filled with the scent of alien flora, and the soft hum of distant wildlife created a peaceful atmosphere. "You know," Ethan said thoughtfully, "survival isn't just about strength or speed. It's about understanding your environment, respecting it, and working with it rather than against it." Lyra nodded slowly. "Your perspective, it is different. Humans have qualities that Zytherans rarely value: intuition, adaptability, and compassion." Ethan smiled faintly. "We've had to. On Earth, conditions can be harsh, resources limited, and danger unpredictable. Those who survive are those who learn to adapt and help each other." Lyra stared at him, realizing that she had underestimated the human capacity for ingenuity and courage. She had approached this mission expecting frustration, conflict, and failure. Instead, she had found a partner capable of facing challenges she had never imagined, and doing so with grace and intelligence. As they sat by the fire, Lyra reflected on her own approach. She had always relied on strict logic, control, and planning. Yet she had learned that there were situations where flexibility, intuition, and empathy were equally important. Humans, she realized, embodied these traits naturally. The next morning, a new challenge awaited. A section of the river delta they had been surveying began to flood unexpectedly, caused by a sudden surge from upstream. Lyra calculated the safest escape routes, but the terrain was unstable and dangerous. Ethan stepped forward confidently. "We'll work together. You monitor the path, I'll guide the team." Lyra followed his lead, impressed by his calm decisiveness. They moved quickly, evacuating their equipment and samples to higher ground. When the flood reached the plateau, they were safe, thanks to Ethan's foresight and clear instructions. Lyra could not hide her growing admiration. "You are remarkable," she admitted, her tone softer than usual. I underestimated humans. I underestimated you. Ethan met her gaze, his expression sincere. And I think you've underestimated yourself, Lyra. You plan, you observe, and you lead. Together, we complement each other. Lyra was silent for a moment, considering his words. She had dreaded working with a human, fearing chaos and error. Yet now she realized that his strengths enhanced her own, and her strengths enhanced his. They were, perhaps, stronger together than they could ever be apart. As the days on Trellis 9 continued, Lyra found herself thinking less about her initial dread and more about the possibilities of partnership. Each challenge revealed not only Ethan's abilities, but also the potential for humans to rise above their reputation for unpredictability. For the first time, Lyra felt a sense of anticipation rather than anxiety. The planet was harsh, the environment unpredictable, but with Ethan at her side, she felt capable of facing any obstacle. By the time they prepared to leave Trellis 9, Lyra's view of humans had shifted profoundly. They were not merely chaotic or emotional. They were adaptable, courageous, and creative. They could face dangers that even highly disciplined Zytherans might struggle with, and they could do so with compassion and ingenuity. As the cruiser lifted off, Lyra stood beside Ethan, gazing at the planet below. She realized that this mission, which she had once approached with dread, had taught her something far more valuable than data or diplomatic protocols. It had taught her the true power of humans, the strength, courage, and insight that could change the outcome of any challenge. And she knew, deep in her heart, that the trials of Trellis 9 were only the beginning. The cruiser glided silently through the void of space, carrying Lyra, Ethan, and their diplomatic team toward the heart of the conflict zone. The mission, which had begun as a routine negotiation between several star systems, had turned into a race against time. Intelligence reports had revealed that a powerful alien fleet, known only as the Korath, was advancing toward the human colony on Zythera with the intention of domination. Lyra's chest tightened as she reviewed the reports. The Korath were known for their advanced technology, cunning strategies, and relentless aggression. Even seasoned Zytheran commanders approached them with caution. The news alone would have been enough to unsettle anyone, but Lyra had learned to maintain composure. She had to. The safety of the colony and the fragile alliances depended on it. "Commander Ethan," she said, her voice steady but carrying the weight of urgency, "the fleet will arrive in less than 72 hours. We must prepare a defense strategy that utilizes both human and Zytheran resources. Any miscalculation could be catastrophic." Ethan studied the holographic display of the fleet's trajectory, his expression thoughtful. "We'll need to combine our forces carefully," he said. "Humans have mobility and adaptability. Zytherans have precision and firepower. If we coordinate properly, we can defend the colony without unnecessary loss." Lyra nodded slowly. "Agreed, but their technology is superior. They can disable ships remotely, infiltrate systems, and anticipate conventional strategies. A direct confrontation is highly risky." Ethan's gaze met hers, calm and unwavering. "Then we won't fight conventionally. We'll create opportunities where they least expect it. We'll use both intelligence and unpredictability to our advantage." Lyra felt a flicker of doubt. Humans often acted on instinct, and instinct could be dangerous in situations that demanded precise calculations. Yet she remembered how he had handled Trellis 9, the floods, the storms, the unstable terrain. His instincts were paired with careful observation and quick analysis. Perhaps this was the human strength she had begun to recognize. The next hours were filled with preparation. Lyra coordinated with the Zytheran fleet leaders, reviewing defensive formations, energy shield calibrations, and supply routes. Ethan moved through the planning chambers with ease, suggesting unconventional tactics that combined human improvisation with Zytheran technology. He proposed creating decoy ships that mimicked the appearance and energy signature of the colony's vessels, drawing the Korath fleet into false targets. He suggested using the asteroid belts surrounding Zythera as ambush points, leveraging gravitational anomalies to confuse enemy sensors. Lyra listened carefully, noting the practicality and brilliance of his suggestions. "These tactics, they are unconventional," she remarked. "Yes," Ethan replied simply. "Unconventional doesn't mean reckless. It means thinking beyond what they expect. Surprise is a weapon." By the time the fleet arrived, the defenses were ready. Scytheran ships formed precise formations, human vessels moved unpredictably, and the decoy ships were deployed silently. Lyra watched from the command center, tension coiling in her stomach. This was the moment that would define the mission, and perhaps the alliance itself. The Korath fleet emerged from hyperspace like a storm. Their ships were massive, sleek, and menacing, bristling with energy weapons. Their sensors immediately scanned the area, searching for targets. Ethan leaned over the console, pointing at the holographic display. Decoys are in position. We'll wait until they commit to their attack pattern, then engage strategically. Timing is everything. Lyra's pulse quickened, but she forced herself to remain calm. She watched as the first Korath ships advanced toward the colony, their energy beams cutting through the darkness of space. At the last moment, human decoy ships moved into the path, appearing as vulnerable targets. The Korath fired, only to discover they had been misled. Ethan's eyes shone with focus. "Now," he commanded, "activate the ambush sequence." Scytheran ships surged forward from hidden positions behind asteroid belts, and human vessels executed precise maneuvers that had been previously deemed impossible. The Korath were caught off guard, their formation disrupted by unpredictable tactics and environmental hazards. Energy beams ricocheted harmlessly against asteroids, and the decoys drew their fire away from the colony. Lyra felt a surge of awe as she watched Ethan direct the battle with calm authority. He was not commanding from a place of arrogance or fear. He was calculating, adapting, and anticipating every move. His human creativity, combined with the Scytheran discipline, created a defense that seemed almost impossible. The Korath adjusted quickly, but Ethan was ready. He identified weaknesses in their formation and directed precise countermeasures. One by one, enemy ships were disabled or forced to retreat. The colony's defenses held, and the threat was neutralized without catastrophic losses. Lyra's mind raced as she observed the outcome. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but Ethan had turned unpredictability into strategy. He had harnessed instinct, intuition, and observation to create a defense that even the disciplined Scytherans could not have achieved alone. When the battle ended, the command center erupted in controlled relief. Lyra turned to Ethan, her expression a mixture of astonishment and admiration. You did it," she said softly. Ethan's gaze met hers, calm and composed. "We did it together," he replied. "Humans can plan, adapt, and act in ways that complement other species. And Scytherans provide precision and strength. Together, we are stronger." Lyra felt a profound realization settle over her. The dread she had felt at the thought of taking a human mate, at the idea of relying on one in a critical mission, was gone. In its place was respect, trust, and something deeper, an understanding of human potential that went beyond instinct or emotion. She thought back to the early days of the mission, the first meeting her doubts, her hesitation. She had underestimated humans, assuming their unpredictability was a weakness. Now she understood that their unpredictability was a kind of power, one that could turn the tide of battles, inspire loyalty, and achieve what logic alone could not. The aftermath of the battle was quiet but filled with reflection. Lyra walked through the cruiser, observing the crew as they attended to repairs, shared reports, and debriefed. Ethan moved among them with ease, offering guidance, encouragement, and reassurance. Every action he took inspired confidence, and the crew responded with loyalty and efficiency. Lyra approached him as he reviewed tactical data in the quiet of the observation deck. "Commander," she said, her voice steady but soft, "I have underestimated humans and you. Your abilities, your mind, they are extraordinary." Ethan glanced up, a small, humble smile on his face. "Extraordinary isn't about being the strongest or fastest," he said. "It's about using what you have, observing carefully, and making the right choices when it matters most." Lyra nodded slowly. "I see now, your strength is not just physical or intellectual, it is comprehensive. Courage, creativity, empathy, adaptability, it all combines into something I have never seen before." Ethan's expression softened. "We all have strengths, Lyra. The key is recognizing them, using them, and trusting those around us." Lyra looked out at the stars, reflecting on the events that had brought them here. The dread she had felt at the thought of taking a human mate, at the thought of relying on one, was no longer present. Instead, there was trust, admiration, and a growing sense of partnership that transcended species. "I understand now," she said quietly. Humans are not to be feared or doubted. They are capable of greatness and courage beyond measure. And you, Ethan, you embody that potential. Ethan nodded, his eyes meeting hers with quiet assurance. And you, Lyra, are stronger than you realize. Your discipline, intelligence, and clarity make you a remarkable leader. Together, we can face anything. As the cruiser set a course back toward Zythera, Lyra felt a profound shift within herself. The galaxy was vast and full of challenges, but she no longer felt dread or doubt. She had seen human potential in its fullest form: courage, ingenuity, adaptability, and wisdom. She had seen it embodied in Ethan, a human who could inspire, lead, and protect even in the most dangerous circumstances. For the first time, Lyra understood that humans were not just allies or companions, they were partners. And she knew with unwavering certainty that the trials ahead would be faced together, with trust, respect, and mutual strength. The stars stretched out before them, a canvas of endless possibilities. Lyra and Ethan stood side by side, ready to face whatever challenges awaited, united not just by duty, but by recognition of the true power that each brought to the partnership. And in that moment, Lyra realized that the dread she had once felt was gone, replaced by a quiet certainty. She had found a partner who could not only match her strength, but also reveal the full potential of humanity in ways she had never imagined. The cruiser floated in orbit. Above Zythera, the blue and green planet glowing beneath them like a jewel in the void. Lyra stood at the observation deck, her eyes scanning the familiar landscape. The human colony lay below, bustling with activity, the rebuilding efforts after the Korath attack nearly complete. It was a scene of hope and resilience, a testament to the courage and determination of both humans and Zytherans. She felt a soft hand on her shoulder. Ethan stood beside her, calm as always, his presence steadying. "You're thinking about everything that's happened," he said quietly. Lyra nodded. "Yes, I am reflecting on what we have achieved, and on what I have learned about humans, about partnership, and about trust." Ethan smiled faintly. "It wasn't easy, but we faced it together. That's what matters." Lyra's mind wandered back through the days of their mission. The early meetings, her initial dread at having a human as a partner, the challenges on Trellis 9, and the battle against the Korath fleet. She had witnessed Ethan's courage, his adaptability, and his intelligence. But she had also seen something more subtle: his ability to inspire loyalty, to remain calm under pressure, and to recognize the strengths of those around him. Her own doubts, which had once been so strong, had melted away. Humans were not chaotic or reckless. They were capable of courage and brilliance in ways she had never expected. And Ethan, he was the embodiment of that human potential. "Commander," Lyra said softly, turning to face him, "I have realized something important. I feared taking a human mate, believing it would be difficult or unwise, but now I understand. Humans, and you specifically, bring strength, wisdom, and a perspective that complements my own. I no longer feel dread, I feel readiness." Ethan's eyes brightened, not with arrogance but with quiet satisfaction. "I'm glad to hear that. I've respected you from the start, Lyra. Your discipline, intelligence, and clarity are remarkable. Together, we can achieve more than either of us could alone." Lyra smiled faintly, a mix of relief and understanding. "Yes, together." The days that followed were filled with final diplomatic negotiations. The colony leaders, representatives from neighboring systems, and Zytheran officials convened in the rebuilt council chambers. Lyra and Ethan worked side by side, coordinating strategies, presenting proposals, and mediating discussions. Their partnership was evident to all. Lyra noticed the respect in the eyes of the human delegates and the Zytheran officers. Where there had once been tension or doubt, there was now confidence and admiration. The alliance had survived the trials of the Korath attack, and it was stronger for it. During one meeting, a council elder spoke directly to Lyra. "Your human partner has shown remarkable skill. I have never seen such adaptability and leadership in a human before. You have chosen well." Lyra nodded, her gaze meeting Ethan's across the room. "He has been invaluable," she replied simply. Ethan gave her a small nod, a gesture of humility and shared pride. Lyra realized that this partnership, which she had initially dreaded, had become the foundation for the success of their mission. After the council meeting, Lyra and Ethan walked through the colony together. The streets were alive with humans and Zytherans working side by side, rebuilding homes, repairing infrastructure, and sharing stories. Lyra felt a sense of peace. This was the result of trust, courage, and collaboration, the very qualities she had once doubted humans could possess. "You see the difference we made," Ethan said quietly, gesturing toward the activity around them. Lyra nodded. "Yes. And it is more than just rebuilding structures. We have built understanding, respect, and cooperation. That is the true strength of any civilization." They paused at the edge of a hill overlooking the colony. The sun set behind the mountains, casting golden light across the valley. Lyra felt the weight of the past weeks lift from her shoulders. She had faced challenges she had never anticipated, yet she had emerged stronger, more aware, and changed. Ethan turned to her, his expression earnest. "Lyra, I know this has been difficult for you, trusting a human, working alongside someone so different from your expectations, but you embraced it. You adapted and you led brilliantly, and you have grown stronger because of it." Lyra's eyes softened. "And I have seen what humans can achieve, Ethan. I have seen courage, creativity, and resilience that surpasses my expectations. I understand now that strength is not only measured in precision or logic, but also in adaptability, empathy, and vision." "You have shown me that," Ethan smiled. "And you've shown me that discipline, clarity, and planning are just as important. Together, we balance each other." Lyra felt a warmth in her chest, a feeling she had never allowed herself to fully recognize before. This was not just professional respect, it was something deeper. She had feared taking a human mate, worried about differences and challenges. But now she understood that partnership was about mutual strength, trust, and complementing each other's abilities. As night fell, they set up a small observation post near the hilltop. The stars stretched endlessly above them, bright and infinite. Lyra and Ethan stood side by side, watching the constellations, the lights of the colony twinkling below. "Do you ever think about what comes next?" Lyra asked softly. Ethan glanced at her. "Every day, there will always be challenges, new missions, unexpected threats, and unknown worlds, but we face them together and that makes all the difference." Lyra nodded. "Yes." Together, she realized that her fear of humans, her hesitation, had been replaced by trust, respect, and admiration. She had found a partner not just capable of matching her abilities, but enhancing them in ways she had never imagined. Over the next days, preparations were made to strengthen the colony's defenses and ensure stability across the system. Lyra and Ethan worked tirelessly, side by side, their partnership a symbol of unity between humans and Zytherans. The bond they had forged through trials and challenges had become unbreakable. One evening, as they reviewed final reports in the command center, Ethan looked up at her. "Lyra, I want you to know something. The strength I have shown is not mine alone. Your guidance, intelligence, and insight have been as important as anything I did. This victory, this success, it is ours." Lyra felt a lump in her throat, emotions she rarely allowed herself rising to the surface. "And you have taught me something invaluable, Ethan," she said. "You have shown me that courage, creativity, and humanity are strengths, not weaknesses. That trust and collaboration can overcome fear and doubt. I am grateful, more than I can say." Ethan extended his hand, and Lyra took it, feeling the steady warmth of human touch. "Then we continue, Lyra, not as commander and diplomat, but as partners. Together we face whatever comes next." Lyra's heart swelled with quiet certainty. "Together," she echoed. As the days turned into weeks, the alliance strengthened. Humans and Zytherans worked together to rebuild, explore, and prepare for future challenges. Lyra and Ethan's partnership became a model of trust, cooperation, and mutual respect. Their bond was more than political necessity. It was a testament to what two beings from different worlds could achieve when they recognized each other's strengths. Lyra often reflected on her initial dread, the hesitation she had felt at the thought of taking a human mate. Now she could not imagine facing the galaxy without Ethan at her side. He had revealed the true power of humanity, the courage, insight, and resilience that could shape the fate of worlds. And she had discovered her own strength as well, the ability to trust, to adapt, and to embrace partnership in its fullest sense. Together they were unstoppable, a force of unity, courage, and hope. One night, as they stood together beneath the stars, Lyra spoke quietly. "Ethan, I once feared taking a human mate. I worried about differences, about unpredictability, about failure. But now I see that strength lies not in avoiding differences, but in embracing them. And in that, we are stronger than I ever imagined." Ethan smiled, his eyes reflecting the light of distant stars. "I feel the same, Lyra. Together, we are more than duty or responsibility. We are trust, partnership, and courage, and nothing can break that. Lyra turned her gaze back to the stars, feeling a quiet joy she had never known. She had faced her doubts, witnessed the power of humanity, and chosen to embrace the bond she had once dreaded. The galaxy was vast, full of unknowns and challenges, but she no longer felt fear. She felt readiness, trust, and partnership. And she knew with unwavering certainty that whatever the future held, she and Ethan would face it together, united by respect, admiration, and the strength they drew from each other. The stars stretched endlessly above them, a reminder that the universe was wide, unpredictable, and full of possibility. But with trust, courage, and partnership, even the greatest challenges could be overcome. Lyra turned to Ethan, a smile spreading across her face. Let us continue together then. No fear, no hesitation, only strength, trust, and partnership. Ethan took her hand once more, his grip firm, steady, and reassuring. Always, Lyra, always. As they stood beneath the infinite sky, Lyra knew that she had not only discovered the true power of humanity, but also the strength of choice, trust, and partnership. And in that knowledge, she found a certainty that would guide her through every mission, every challenge, and every starry horizon yet to come. The galaxy awaited, and together they were ready.